You are listening to the Beyond the High Road podcast with Shelby Milford, episode number 104. Stay tuned. Hey guys, how are we doing today? Took my earrings off because I was actually on an old-fashioned phone consult call today. And so, and I didn't have I lost one of my AirPods, you guys. One. I think a dog ate it. One of them, not my dog, but another dog, like a little while back. Anyway, I need to get a new pair. Okay, so today we are going to talk about, I guess I should do announcements. So the doors are officially open for the survival course. I realized I got a question from somebody the other day and realized that I haven't actually been clear on the length. The reason I think that you guys would care about the length of time that you're in it is because, if it were me, I'd want to know how long until I started to feel better. You know what I'm saying? Funny, not funny. How long is this going to take me to start feeling like not miserable? And so I will tell you that the course, it's intended to go for 6 months because with my one-on-ones too, that is where clients finding the most results because within that 6 months, a person can really apply the principles to their everyday life into all the everyday little situations. And in a group coaching setting, what I love about group coaching, and that's actually what I did initially too, you get to learn from all the other people who are going through similar situations to you, or maybe not so similar. Some of this time it's like completely different, but the concepts and the way it's applied and you hearing other people going through it and how they're going to apply it, you learn a lot more because you're applying all the steps, all of the tools in a very practical setting, like a lab. So there's that. It's 6 months long. And then come 6 months from now, the plan is to then have a second group go through, like that. But you get, as long as the program is open, y'all get access to the weekly calls moving forward for all of the other cohorts too, like the group coaching calls, because there's two different kinds of calls. There's the course calls, and then there's the group coaching calls. See what I'm saying? Okay. All right. Now, the second thing I wanted to announce is that, so TikTok lives are on Thursdays at 8:30 p.m. Eastern, and then noon on Facebook the next day. Okay. And they are entirely different settings. It's a different feel. And usually I'm not even talking about the same thing. The last thing I will announce this weekend, I am holding a worry workshop on Saturday at 1 p.m. Eastern. Okay. So if you would like to come, you got to register because I don't know who's coming, like how many people are coming. It's free. It's no charge. It's just a workshop. There's no selling. Well, I will tell you at the end that you should totally join the group coaching, program that's getting ready to start, but that's about it. Otherwise, if you have been worrying your way to sleep every night, or you feel like, the anxiety is high these days, then come on. And I've got a 3-part workshop for you. Okay. And that's it. Okay. So now we're going to go on to today's topic, which is, I actually did discuss this on the Facebook Live just last week, but I really thought after I talked about it, it's more impromptu then. I thought, I bet many of you parents out there are going through this. Many humans probably are, but especially us. And that is when you feel like it's you against the world and there are bombs going off everywhere around you. And like everything you try, you're trying so hard, you're putting out all of this effort to just get, it's usually like, God, I'm trying all these things and all I want to do is get here. And everybody else can get here, but I can't because blah, 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 because of alienation, because of the other parent, because of lack of resources, yada, 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 right? And when I yada, yada, yada that, just know that I wasn't minimizing your yada, yada, yada. I just didn't want to go into all the examples. When we're there, it feels like our goals or just getting by, for fuck's sake, is impossible. Like you just don't know how you're going to make it, right? So I want to talk to you about that. And then ultimately, really what I want to talk with you guys about is why it's happening and what you can do about it. Okay? Okay. So when you're telling yourself that the world's against you, nothing seems to work no matter how hard I try, I can't get ahead. I do get ahead, just a tiny bit ahead. I feel like I've got the wind at my back, and then boom, everything blows up, and then I'm back behind where I was before. It is very typical for our brains to overestimate the amount of wreckage that's before us. We will make it so much bigger to the point where we can't manage our mind around it. And what I want to help you do is to be able to feel powerful or having agency over it. And the only way that you can do that is to take the air out of it, right? To shrink it down some, pull the emotion out of it. The best thing that you can do, get very specific and write down on your notes app or on a piece of paper, what has gone wrong that got us here? What just blew up? 9 times out of 10, we say that everything has gone wrong. And really, when it gets down to it, nuts and bolts, we write it down, and it's 2 or 3 things that are happening that are really affecting us right now. And maybe one or even all of those things that you have listed are big deals. But when you say that 20 things, like everything is a big deal, you have a lot more to overcome in your brain than when you say these 3 specific things have gone wrong right now. So factualize what's gone wrong. The next thing is when you tell yourself that you've tried everything. I've tried all the things. That's all I've been doing. There is nothing else to do. I'm out of solutions. It's impossible. When you do this, you act as your own enemy. So list out what exactly you've tried. What steps have I taken thus far that have not worked? Usually by listing them, the act of doing that listing, it tends to unclutter things. It also tends to spark more innovation, different ideas. It can turn into a brainstorming session just by writing down the things you've already done. If nothing else, then you have something to refer back to, a blueprint for where you're going to go next, right? I know this stuff is so basic, but when we're going through it with many alienated parents that I speak with, we have a story that's going on up in the noggin that says that we're exempt from any solutions. Like, oh, that's not going to work for me because I'm alienated. You may not say it that way. Some people do, but it could be there flying under the radar, right? And so when you think that, you already start to cut yourself off from finding those solutions. Also, once you've gotten specific about what's gone wrong and what steps you've taken thus far up until now, this is about the time when your brain will start to offer you excuses or arguments like objections about your decisions or mistakes you've made in your past. If only we wouldn't have done that thing. If only we would have done blah, blah, blah. Why did I do that back then? If I just would have made the left as opposed to making the right, we wouldn't be in this boat right now. If I never would have met that person, if I never would have gone that place whenever. This is your survival brain that likes to do this because it doesn't like to be in this uncomfortable place of confronting your life, right? So it'll usually just want to try to solve for your past, which is, as you guys know, fucking impossible. It's pointless to do it. So in that time, the second that your brain starts to come up with those objections about your mistakes from the past, yeah, for sure, take ownership of those, but your brain is really trying to deter you from getting somewhere new. So at that time, just politely interrupt your brain. This is a thought habit that's happening. Your brain is really freaking smart, keen, and adept at distracting you when it comes to any growth possibilities, which is awful actually to think about because we have this brain, the survival brain, that works against us in today's world, because in today's world, we don't need to be operating off of survival brain most of the time. We don't have people running at us trying to kill us at all times. And especially while in the situation of like going back to court for a kid, 99% of the time, I would say, survival brain is not helpful for us to be operating off of when we need to be using our higher thinking in order to get us to where we want to go, right? So just remind yourself of that when it's trying to solve for shit there's nothing you can do about. Okay? In a loving, compassionate, even sense of fascination sort of tone, like the one that you would take with your darling 4-year-old child. But a serious, like a firm, loving, serious, fascinated tone. You know what I'm saying? So it will try to tell you, bring you to all the reasons why you made the mistakes in the past. And that's why we found ourselves here today, or the reason why, because they did all those things back there that we are stuck here today. But again, all of that, you could say that for as long as you want. Well, it's all their fault that I'm here. If they wouldn't have done this, and I wouldn't be here. And I'm with you. Like I could say that, till the cows come home. I could say that all day long for weeks on end and be right. I would be accurate. But what does that get me except for stuck staring at a wall? It gets me nowhere. Miserable thinking about all the ways that I've been victimized. You just feel worse about your whole life. So when your brain is trying to blame you or whatever decisions you made in the past, interrupt and contemplate or ask yourself high quality questions instead, like, I shouldn't be here. This isn't the place I'm supposed to be in. If I just wouldn't have done that, then I wouldn't find myself here. Instead of fighting what already is, like Byron Katie talks about loving what is, which was some of the hardest work that I ever had to do for myself, on myself, when I started this whole journey, is loving what is, loving my situation of alienation. I was like, is this lady out of her goddamn brain? It was a really tough one to go through, but I chose to do it. I mean, I was being taught by her from a distance. She was mentoring me. She didn't know it. I chose to go through it because I thought, what could the downside be to this? Because at that point, I knew I wasn't going to be going back to court. I knew that I couldn't change my current situation with how other people were behaving because that wasn't in my plans of what I was going to be pursuing. So I was like, all right, well, if I'm not going to try to change this, then I'm going to go ahead and try to love what is. Now, I will tell you to this day, I've decided, even though I did that work back then, I've chosen to not love what is because I know that it created too much dissonance in me inside to tell myself that I loved my daughter being away from me. But I did at the time embody that. I taught myself how to do that so that I could attain that skill and use it in moderation, if you will. Like I use it now to an extent in my everyday life when it comes to my daughter and our distance, because as you know, that I choose to believe that this must be bringing me to my highest version of myself. And I really trust. And I mean, guys, I don't love the word hope, but I guess there's hope there too, that it's also bringing her to her best version of herself. That's what keeps me moving, every day. It has to be. It has to be. Because to me, I'd run out of all of the steam I could, beating my head up against a wall, by trying to go back to court. Now, is that the right answer for everybody? No, I don't believe that that's the right answer. That was just my answer. So just know that I'm not saying that you should not go back to court, okay? Not at all. I encourage people to do all the different things. It just depends on your situation. So, okay, all right, back to where I was. If you're not on board with, like, let's say you are going back to court to change things and you don't want to love what is because that's not where you're settling, that's fine. But how can this whole experience, whatever has just blown up in your face, how is it working for your benefit moving forward? How is this pushing you forward into what it is that you need to create, right? Even though it seems like a huge setback, which sometimes I know feels like a slap in the face to think, how could this be ever working for me, especially when it comes to alienation and our kids being abused? How can our kids being abused be something that I should use to push myself forward? And it's not that binary. It's not like your kids are being abused so that you could push yourself forward. That's not it. It's more like, this is what is happening because there is cruelty in the world. You have to define it for yourself. I just think there is free will. People are going to do what they do. They believe it is right for them, meaning the alienator and his wife, for me. They have a cause and they believe it's right. Do I believe it's right? No, absolutely not. But I also, too, think that the things that I went through as a kid and that weren't good and that I don't like that happened to me, they truly made me who I am today. And I love who I am today. I love myself. It actually just fills me up. And I feel my heart expanding even saying that now, because I want to hand that off to y'all, all of the shit that happened, the terrible things that I would never wish even on my enemy. And I'm sure in your lives, things have happened that have just been icky and awful and terrible, right? You're like, why would this happen to anybody? This stuff we can use to create all the depths that we are today, all the beautifulness that we are. Really, truly try to find the ways that it might be working for you. Why would this challenge be here for me? You guys have heard my Dora's backpack analogy, right? Apply that here. Maybe this challenge was set here for me so that I could get strong and move forward, right? So I'm going to expand on that a little further in just a minute, right? When I go into my next point. But also, when I feel like the shit is hitting the fan and the fan is pointed in my direction, I just did it the other day. There was a challenge that I felt impossible at the moment. What I tell myself is I will look back at what's happening right now, and I'll use this as my story for the people who, when I'm up there, are in the spot that I'm in now, in the hardship. Just basically what this whole podcast is. All of these little things that I've shared with you over the time, today I can hand them to you guys. And then what I hope for you guys, honestly, is I share with you how I got over the challenges coming from alienation. There was nobody else out there that was making good from their life that I found, right? I'm not saying there weren't out there, but I couldn't find anybody that was healing and finding growth as a result of alienation. And so me handing all of my challenges to you and telling you that you can get through this, I hope that you take all the things that I offer you guys, and then you guys use that to even go further with it. You know what I'm saying? That is my goal. And then that just keeps going, and it just keeps expanding, making this of course, it'll always be a challenging situation, but not impossible situation to get beyond. That's the whole purpose. But my first thought my first helpful thought usually is, wait a second, maybe this is happening right now because I can use this in my story up there about the low points that I was in back when I was in it. So guarantee that this is happening for me as a defining setback of all of my story. I had to go through this in order to have the dynamic story that I know I will have coming up, and that I already have with you. All of these setbacks that I've had, the going to jail 4 different times, the stalking. I haven't even told you guys nearly. Really shied away from telling you guys a lot of the challenges I've gone through, because I know that you've gone through so many challenges already that I don't want to re-traumatize you. But sometimes, every so often, I do think it helps for you guys to understand that I'm not just some mom that has a little bit of alienation going on and it's been, a little troublesome in my life. It's really it really put my life in the shitter for a very long time. And then I had to crawl out of said shitter, over the years. And it wasn't easy. It hasn't been easy. It still isn't easy. And I don't know if it ever will get easy. Life in general. At some point, I will have paid off all the debt from before with court, child support, and all the things. And I will have paid off all the debt, and I'll be in a space where I'm not necessarily working my way out of a shitter financially from that. But still, we all deal with challenges every day, especially if you're alienated and not in contact with your children, of dealing with your role that you play in your everyday life. Okay, so now I've just gone completely off the rails. Let me just veer myself right back to where on topic. So one of my thoughts is, one of these days, this will become one of the pivotal points that will resonate with somebody out there. I always look at it not always, not at first, not when I'm feeling like it's a challenge, but when I'm pulling myself out of it, I'll view future me already through it and looking back on it and using this shitty situation to help the next person. And that always almost immediately lightens the whole thing up. It's right, this too shall pass. This is only happening so that I can relate and I can be relatable to one more person out there, one more parent out there that needs it the most. This very thing is going to be happening with that parent. I needed this part of my story in order to serve somebody in the future. Which brings me to my other thought. When I'm in this spot, many times I just want to throw my hands up in the air, like nothing's working. It's all impossible. Maybe I'm just going for the wrong goal, or I'm in my poopy pants and the world sucks and everybody's against me and I can't get any help from anybody. And if it just would have been different, such and such, and if my parents would have been, that we could all go down that road for way too long. If giving up is an option for me at that moment, then I remind myself that if I give up on my goals, then I give up on every single one of you. And I give up on my daughter. And I give up on all the people out there that might have not pushed further or pushed more and achieved their goals if I didn't continue on with mine. I can't be that example. And so that always, there's people out there that are just waiting for me to help them, just like the people out there that are waiting for you to help them. It's my duty as a mom to my daughter. There will be a time where she will be waiting, and all this time built up to it. Maybe she does need me to be out there and doing this very thing that I'm doing for my own self to model that to her. If I give up early, then I'm also giving up on her. Because who's to say which thing is ever going to stick out to her? What kind of effort or the way that I show up, because I show up this way today, maybe that causes me to show up in the next way, or I meet another person. There's all these opportunities, in every single time that we show up, even for the little tiny things. What do they say? Life is 99% about showing up. It's something that I've actually had to coach myself on recently, because I will get lazy on the showing up, especially these days when we don't actually have to show up. I will get lazy and be like, oh, it won't really matter because I'm just online. And, for somebody's live event. Earlier, one of my friends is going live and I wanted to be there to show support. But at the same time, I had client. It would be easy to be like, it's just too much. I got to take care of my own people. But then I thought I would love the support if I were in her position. Life is about showing up. It's about doing what you say you're going to do and being there to support. So even if it's for a shorter period of time, or you're just there in spirit and to write a couple things in their live event and still do your work, but also be there, then why not? It's no skin off my back. I would have loved to actually be there for the whole thing. Do what you can, but showing up is so important, especially when we're talking about showing up for other alienated parents. So anyway, those are the two thoughts that help me the most when I feel like I want to quit, or I want to slow down, or I want to give myself an out because things just aren't going easy. So when your brain wants to come up with all the things that you shouldn't have done or they shouldn't have done to get you where you are today, that's when you interrupt yourself and come up with your one or two thoughts, come up with them now ahead of time so that you are ready with them, prepared for your brain to start bringing up the past that you can't solve anything about, When you start to go to that place, things shouldn't be this way, it should have happened this way, they shouldn't have done that. Not to say that you shouldn't be upset about the fact that this has happened, right? It kind of depends too where you're coming from. If you know that you indulge in this and you're always going to, God, I would just wish it wasn't this way, they shouldn't have ever done this stuff. If you've been doing that for a while and you actually have had time to grieve it, then you need to redirect and come up with one or two thoughts that you can replace that actually do something for you, that motivate you like these do for me. I don't want to give up on the people that need me. And I know that there are people out there that would nobody needs me. You know what I'm saying? All of you empowered adults out there, parents out there, you don't need me. But at the same time, I know that what I've been through is, and where I am today is of great use to you. And I want you to also be that support for the next people. Do you know what I'm saying? That to me motivates me. No, those people need me. They need to hear that it's okay and it will, all of this too shall pass, but you have to keep going. This is key. When you want to give up, manage your mind around what you think you're capable of. I need to say, and right now I need to interrupt myself, and I think it goes without saying, but just in case this is one of the first episodes you listen to of mine, I want to refer back to the end of episode 97. You want to base your goals or what you're trying to attain solely on how you are showing up. And then whatever happens as a result, that's just the bad and the good, the 50-50 that life hands us. It's how we deal with it. Because if we're just constantly going after things that either, one, we know that we can attain, then we're always playing it safe. So we're never really growing through something. We're just playing it safe. We're going towards things we already have the capability of creating. So you're just going to keep recreating the same thing from your past. Or if you're going for somebody else to behave a certain way so you can feel a certain way, then you're going to end up needing to set things up in front of you for your own success. You would have to rig the game, basically. That it's cheating. That's never really a real win, and you're just relying on luck. Instead, I want to help you to empower yourself much more than that and grow into the new version of you, because you're basing everything on the results that you create. It doesn't, I mean, of course it matters how your children are behaving towards you, but when you rise above that and you're okay no matter what, how they, of course you would love for them to want to be with you, see the error of the alienating parents' ways and all the things, right? Of course we would all love that. But let's not rig the game. Instead, let's get you to the place where you feel capable, worthy, and badass no matter what. And you can't wait for your kid to want to be with you too. So back to the world being blown up. This is the real point that I wanted to get to. If your world is blowing up right now, and like it feels like no matter what, you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't, every which way you turn, shit is going wrong, or dead ends, you're hitting all of these dead ends. Usually it's because you've been telling yourself and putting it out there in the world that you want your life to change, that you don't like the current status of your life. Things are not satisfactory to you. And you've been trying to change frequencies to get to a higher frequency. You have been doing the legwork, right? Work on your own self and your own thoughts, and you've been doing work in your relationships or whatever. But shit starts to blow up anyway. You're like, I'm doing all the right things. I swear, I'm doing everything exactly how maybe you're saying this to me, right? I've been doing everything that you're telling me to do, Shelby. I've been doing all blah, 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 right? Well, come join the group coaching program. That is what your next goal is. And then remind yourself, it very well could be life is cutting you off in all of the areas and making things uncomfortable for you, intolerable for you to remain in the current state. Like for me, I used to always say I could live in a paper bag and it'd be fine. Like I could always make do. That's just kind of, I hated that about my upbringing, even though I was brought up well. I was really kind of forgotten about in the family. So I always was the one that made do. And so that became my motto, like unspoken, unrecognized motto is that I can just make do. I'll just do without. I can survive. I can get by. I'll figure it out. As a result, I have a high tolerance to a lot of unacceptable things in my life, not just unacceptable people, which was true for a very long time, but I had a high tolerance to the pain that was happening in my life. And so therefore, in order for me to change, all the shit had to blow up. Like all the things. It had to be to the point where it was unlivable, intolerable, in order for me to be like, oh, okay, it's time for me to move. Like there's no other choice but to move. Desperation, really, was what it was. People like to say, oh, I'm just hard-headed. I just don't learn my lesson. It could be this, like what I'm talking about, right? Is that you, your whole life, have learned how to make do. And if you're a Gen X baby, Gen X, is that right? Not Gen Z. Gen Z is the younger ones, right? If you're a Gen X baby, I think that a lot of us are this way because we had parents that were like, it was like the wild, wild west. I mean, I know there was plenty of parents before us, but for whatever reason, our parents were mine were anyway, and I think a lot of them were like la-di-da, off in some other fucking world, right? And so a lot of us did make do in our life, right? I was just watching this, there was the Menendez brothers last night, but one theme almost made me uncomfortable is that the dad kept saying, just don't get caught. Dude, my dad like lived by that logo and he was the head of the DEA, just don't get caught. Just don't get caught. And that was it, Anyway, back off task again. So that's why I know today, to this day, that I was just like, always like, oh, I'm resilient. I'm rough and tumble. It's fine. I can make do, all deal. And so I would stay with the current state of my life for way too long in many, many, many cases and scenarios. And when people were treating me poorly, I did it then. Maybe too, because of other things that happened too. But I would tolerate it. I could tolerate it. I knew that I could because I knew that I had quote unquote tough skin. But just because you can tolerate something doesn't mean that you should or that you want to. You know what I'm saying? Like, you don't have to keep tolerating your life. You don't have to. You can actually move to it, at the very least, a different headspace so that you're not just tolerating, that you're seeing the good in your life today, which is a huge, to me, doing that work alone will change your life. Being able to see the good and being able to see the advantage of all of it. Just what I was saying before, loving what is, right? How is this working for you? But if you're telling yourself that you want your life to change, and then all of a sudden things start getting uncomfortable for you, it's because there's one area, or maybe more than one area, like you've been doing the work, but now it's time to push over that threshold. You're avoiding doing a certain thing, right? It just depends on what we're talking about. And you have to probably put yourself out on a limb, and it's going to feel risky to you. And so you've been avoiding doing that thing as like a last ditch effort, right? You just are like, oh, I don't want to have to do that. Let's see if we can make it without doing it. That's the thing. Your life is making you uncomfortable right now for you so that you can move to the next frequency and you can move to the next level of your life, the next version of you. But you can't get there being the person that you are today. You have to make that growth. Life just doesn't give it to you. There's steps that you have to take for you to become the person that is in that life. Does that make sense? You've got to put yourself out in the line in whichever way that is. You know what it is when you're thinking to yourself. It's usually the thing that you're telling yourself that you either have to quit. You'll tell yourself like either while you're later at night when you're getting into bed or you can't sleep, or, when you're driving home from work and you're like, yeah, I really should do that, or I should stop doing that, whatever, that thing. Usually. Okay. Maybe it's in a couple areas too. Don't just try the bare minimum, do them all, because the more that you do, the more you will grow and the more levels you will go. You create more room for yourself. The more that you grow, the more responsibility that you get, the more freedom that you get. That's just the basics of like growing up as a kid, But it's the same now and today in adulthood. Even if you're into your 60s, it does not matter. Same rules apply. Like you can't, I know we've talked about this and I'm not the only person you probably heard this from, but like in order to get the things at, like, if you look at like your idols, whoever those are, it seems like impossible for you to reach where they're at because they are at a different frequency. They've grown in order to get to that level, right? So you can see them from here and you're like, oh, it's just too much of a gap. You can't. But it's just that you need to keep growing. You can't get to those places by wishing it to happen. There's work that you have to do. You can't just keep doing what you did yesterday to get to where you want to go. You cannot get there without doing new things that stretch you out of your comfort zone now. You know what I'm saying? So that is why your life is blowing up on you. That's why. It's because if you tolerate a lot of things, then you're going to keep resisting the moving forward because you're like, no, it's fine. I'll just stay here and play it safe here. But your life is going to kick you out so that you can get to the new life. Right? It's like somebody's like, you keep sitting in a chair, and finally somebody comes and like pulls it out from you and pushes you like, you can't sit here anymore. You got to go there. You got to go that way. It's happening for your growth and for your good. Even though I know that can be very controversial and off-putting when we're talking about our situations of alienation, because how could this be working for you? I get you. But like I said, it's not binary. It doesn't have to be your children have to go through something bad. You have to be punished in order for you to get to the good place. You don't have to see it that way because it's not that way. It's like, this is just, yes, that this is horrible. And also what you make of your life as a result of it is this. And if you've been saying that this is what you want, well, this is the way you get there as you grow. But yeah, it's happening for you. Okay. How is that true for you today? And every time that you find yourself in a helpless place or feeling victimized, or like that other people have, or you, the past version of you is responsible for how you are, where you are today, and you have no moves to make, then ask yourself, all right, well, that did happen, but how could this be a growth opportunity for me today? Just possibly. How is it that my life now, taking whatever is happening, would it be? The chips have fallen, right? Now, how is life pushing you out of your chair and moving you forward? And are you going to take that opportunity? Who in your future is waiting for you to be there for them? You know? Okay. All right, y'all. Okay, remember, this Saturday, I'm going to have the link down below. For the Worry workshop. And I'm going to tell you right now what it is. It's beyondthehighroad.com// whatever it is. Worry workshop. Both W's are capitalized. For whatever reason, in my goofy website, it does matter. I don't know how to fix that. But Worry workshop. So capital W for worry, capital W for workshop. Okay. So, but the link will be right down below. Or you can find my link tree at any of my socials too. And it'll be there. And then live Thursday, 8:30, TikTok. Everything will be posted down below. And then on Facebook, the Facebook group, the private Facebook group. You guys, private Facebook group is free. Free. SREE. Okay? I've had some people asking me that question lately. No, it's free. All free. Okay? Not all free, but that's free. Okay, goodbye. Have a lovely rest of your week. And I'll see you on Saturday.
Thanks so much for listening today. If you like what you're hearing and you'd like to hear more, please make sure to click subscribe wherever you're listening or watching. Also, for bite-sized clips and tips, be sure to find me on TikTok or Instagram. See you next week.